Greenwood was a quiet town, nestled among tree-covered hills, where the nights were filled with the chirping of crickets and the rustling of the wind in the leaves. Most of the residents were used to this nighttime tranquility, but there was a group of 4 friends who were longing for something more exciting in their lives. Alex, Emma, Jake, and Lily shared a peculiar passion: hunting. They were not content with just the thrill of hunting wild animals. They also had a special attraction to stories of mysterious and unknown creatures that inhabited the forests around Greenwood. It was a full moon night when the 4 friends decided to go on a nocturnal excursion in the forest. The idea of exploring the darkness of the forest was exciting to them, and they were determined to unravel the mysteries that surrounded that place. Before leaving, they gathered at Alex's house, where they spread maps and equipment around the room. Alex, the leader of the group, was a true hunting enthusiast and had a collection of flashlights, binoculars, and cameras, all ready for the night expedition. Emma, a nature lover, was excited about exploring the forest at night and capturing incredible images of nocturnal wildlife. Jake, the athlete in the group, was looking forward to the prospect of a challenging hike. Lily, the skeptic, was ready to prove that stories of scary creatures were just urban legends. When night fell and the moon shone in the starry sky, they set off towards the forest. Each of them carried a backpack with water, snacks, and camping gear, prepared for a night of exploration. The forest was quiet when they entered, and the tall trees cast ominous shadows on the ground. Alex and Emma's flashlights cast rays of light through the leaves, creating hypnotic patterns on the trees. The murmur of the wind and the sounds of nightlife filled the air, creating a magical and unsettling atmosphere at the same time. The group laughed and chatted as they walked deeper into the forest, trying to maintain a relaxed attitude. They felt invulnerable to the light of the moon and the safety of the group. However, as the night progressed, a feeling of restlessness began to set in. The sounds of the forest, once enchanting, began to take on a darker tone. The snapping branches, the hooting owls, and the occasional silence created a sense of anticipation in the air. The friends tried to ignore these sounds, attributing them to wild nature, but a feeling of discomfort persisted. "You heard that, right?" Lily said, looking around with a nervous look. The others nodded but tried to maintain their composure. It was just the first part of their nighttime adventure, and they didn't want to look scared too soon. As the night wore on and darkness deepened in the forest, a feeling that something was wrong continued to grow. It was as if the forest itself was watching, waiting for something the friends couldn't identify. However, determined to prove that there was nothing scary in those forests, they continued on, deeper into the darkness of the night. Little did they know that what they would find deep in the forest would challenge all their beliefs and change their lives forever. As the friends continued to advance through the dark forest, the full moon cast an eerie light on the trees, creating shadows that seemed to move in a supernatural manner. The air was filled with a sense of anticipation, as if something was about to happen. Jake, always the bravest of the group, led the way with his flashlight. He was determined to reach a secluded clearing that he had heard about in local stories. The clearing was said to be a mysterious place where nocturnal creatures gathered. As they walked, the friends began to hear strange sounds in the forest. It was as if branches were breaking somewhere nearby, but there was no wind strong enough to explain the noises. They exchanged nervous glances, but Jake insisted they should continue. Finally, after hours of walking, they reached the clearing Jake had mentioned. It was an impressive place, with a small lagoon that reflected the light of the full moon. The trees surrounding the clearing were tall and majestic, creating a feeling of isolation. The friends decided to take a break to rest and have a snack. They sat down on the grass, and Emma immediately began taking photos of the stunning scene. The atmosphere was charged with magic, but there was an unsettling feeling that lingered. While they were sitting in the clearing, Jake noticed something strange at the edge of the pond. He stood up and walked over, examining the mud near the water. His eyes widened in surprise when he saw footprints in the mud. These were no ordinary animal tracks. They appeared to have 3 elongated fingers and sharp claws. The other friends approached and were equally perplexed. They examined the footprints, taking photos of them to record their discovery. None of them could find a logical explanation for those strange footprints. As they were busy with the footprints, the air around them began to feel cold and heavy. The feeling of being watched came over them, and they turned. looking for any sign of movement in the shadows of the forest. It was then that Emma spotted something strange among the trees. A tall, thin, human-looking figure stood there, watching them with eyes that glowed in the darkness. They stood still, their hearts beating fast as they stared at the shadowy figure. "You guys see this, right?" Lily whispered, her voice shaking. The shadowy figure suddenly stepped forward, revealing himself more clearly. Its features were pale and distorted, as if it were a supernatural creature. She made a guttural, unintelligible sound, as if she were trying to communicate in some way. Panic gripped the group, and they turned to flee from the figure, but the creature began to chase them with slow, silent steps. The forest seemed to close in around them, the trees turning into terrifying shadows. They ran as fast as they could, but the creature was always right behind them, as if it was playing with them. The air was filled with a strange, nauseating smell, and the trees seemed to move in an ominous way, blocking his path. Lily tripped and fell, screaming in pain as she struggled. The friends pulled it and continued running, with the creature following closely behind them. The chase continued for endless hours. The friends were exhausted and terrified, but the mysterious creature persisted in its relentless pursuit. The forest around them seemed to transform into an ominous nightmare, with trees that leaned menacingly and bushes that twisted like tentacles. Jake led the group, running as fast as his legs would carry him. He couldn't understand why the creature was after them or what it wanted. The other friends ran desperately after him, their faces pale and sweaty in the moonlight. The strange sounds in the forest seemed to intensify, as if the forest itself was conspiring with the creature. Twigs snapped like broken bones, and the owl's howls seemed to grow more ominous by the second. It was as if the forest was alive and turned against them. The creature itself was a terrifying sight. Her slender and distorted figure was illuminated only by the dim light of the moon. His eyes glowed like red embers, and his mouth was distorted into a sinister smile. She made unintelligible sounds, as if she was mocking them. Lily stumbled again, falling with a groan of pain. Her friends stopped to help her, but the creature was getting closer. They pulled her up and kept running, the forest around them seeming to close in like a prison. The creature, for some reason, seemed reluctant to get too close to the edge of the forest. When the friends finally reached the edge of the forest, panting and terrified, she seemed confined to the forest environment, unable to cross the invisible line that separated them. The friends entered the city in panic, finding refuge in a nearby house. They locked all the doors and windows, shaking in fear as they shared what they had witnessed. They told the story to local residents, and soon legends about the mysterious creature spread. No one has ventured into the forest at night since then, and the creature has become part of local folklore, frightening children and adults alike. The friends survived that terrible night, but they could never forget the feeling of being hunted in the dark forest and the images of the creature that seemed like something out of a nightmare. They've learned that sometimes it's best to leave the mysteries of the forest alone, as the answers can be more terrifying than we imagine. They didn't know what the creature was or why it was in the forest, but one thing was certain: they would never venture into those dark, sinister depths again. The four friends remained inside the house, locked and in complete silence, while the mysterious creature remained in the forest outside. The sound of the night wind blowing through the trees echoed like a constant lament, creating an atmosphere of tension that didn't allow anyone to relax. They discussed what they had witnessed in the forest, trying to find rational explanations for the creature, the strange footprints, and the bizarre sounds. However, all the theories they presented seemed insufficient to explain what they had faced. The night went on, and the friends' anxiety only increased. They had no idea how long the creature would remain in the forest, or if it would eventually leave. Jake was determined to go back to the forest to get more evidence, but the others insisted it was a crazy idea. Finally, after hours of agony, the day began to lighten, and the creature seemed to have retreated into the depths of the forest. The friends breathed a sigh of relief, but were still very shaken by what they had experienced. They decided to leave the house cautiously and return to the city. As they walked through the deserted morning streets, they silently shared the fear that had consumed them throughout the night. None of them could forget the creature's glowing eyes and distorted smile. They shared their story with local residents, but many did not believe it, attributing it to exaggeration caused by fear of the night in the forest. Some, however, had their own stories to tell, of encounters with strange creatures and unexplained sounds in that very forest. The friends swore never to return to the forest again, and their lives returned to normal, but the trauma of that night never left them. They continued to wonder about the nature of the creature and the dark secrets the forest held. Over time, the story of their nocturnal adventure became a local legend, a warning about the unknown dangers of the dark forest. The city's children grew up with stories of a mysterious creature that roamed the night, reminding them that the wild can hide terrifying secrets. The four friends also never forgot the feeling of being hunted that night, and the memory of the mysterious creature continued to haunt them in their nightmares. They learned that the forest hid deep mysteries, and that some things should remain undiscovered, for the answers may be more terrifying than we imagine.